Welcome back to Retro Wednesday at the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike. Today I want to talk to you about the Vintage Kenner Droids toy line based on the cartoon in 1985. Now, this is an entire collection of Droids figures. I'm missing one of the vehicles. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and I probably won't ever go after it. But this toy line can be a little bit challenging to collect. I have some reproduction stuff. It's not all original. And I have a representation of everything, so it's all I really need on my shelf. I'm going to share that with you today. Now, I haven't seen anybody else do the entire toy line in one video yet. Maybe it's out there, but I haven't seen it, so I'm going to share that with you today. But anyway, come on this ride with me to take a look at what was done in Kenner for 1985 for the Droids cartoon. We're going to talk about this and more coming up. Okay, so first of all, I do want to talk about Boba Fett. Now, Boba Fett was repacked as just a standard Boba Fett, and this one seems to be a little back heavy because of the backpack. And it was in this kind of style of card back right here. Now, I don't have a vintage card back. I have the one they made at Target not too long ago, and I was like, I'm happy with that. Oddly enough, I could have picked up the Stan Solo one, and I got this one instead. Anyway, the Boba Fett was the same figure as we saw with all the other ones, which is why I passed on it. I actually saw an auction that had several of these droids years ago for like $300. Had three of them sealed on the card. I should have picked it up, but I just wasn't into the droids back then, so that's just how the cookie crumbles. Now, this is a Stan Solo here, and it looks more like the cartoon, which is why I have that on my shelf. This is from a different shelf. Like, this whole collection is on 4 or 5 different displays and shelves, by the way, but this looks more like the cartoon. It looks pretty good. I believe it's based off the same mold that Stan Solo used. But anyhow, it looks pretty cool. It's kind of fun. But I just kind of feel like the repacks, the Boba Fett, and we're going to get into a couple of these other repacks that they did, are sort of kind of lazy layups that they did in this line. And they don't really excite me as much as these other figures. So we'll get into that. But this was Boba Fett, and probably most people's favorite. Alright, next up, let's talk about the next lazy repack of a figure. This is the A-Wing pilot, and it's a repack. We're going to talk about the A-Wing itself here in a little bit, but they repacked this, and they moved the A-Wing to Droids instead of having the A-Wing as part of Power of the Force or even Return of the Jedi. Here is the card back, and I believe this is the Stan Solo one. Because I didn't collect these back in the day when I should have, or could have gotten them a lot cheaper. So I go with these options not on everything, but it looks pretty good. It's just a pilot. It's one of those that should be sort of like a troop builder, a cheap troop builder, easy to get. Now, the gun itself is a pain to get my hands on. I do have a couple of the guns for this guy, but I don't ever store them in the hand of the figure, just out of fear of losing it into the abyss. But anyhow, it's a tiny little gun, and it looks about like that. That tiny little gun there. That is the bane of a lot of collectors' existence, trying to get some of these later run tiny little guns. But that's the A-Wing pilot. Let's move on to something a little more fun. Going from lazy repacks to lazy repaints, we've got these R2 and C-3PO. Now, I do have the Target exclusive ones right here, which I think are really cool. I'm glad they did it. What I don't like about these Target ones is the fact that they should have made them retro collection and not vintage collection. It doesn't make sense that they were vintage collection, but I think that was a waste on them since they already have the molds for retro. Why not? But anyhow, this is how they look, and I guess since we're looking at card backs, there are the card backs. I got a lot of glare on this. This is a Stan Solo on the right. It is a original packaging on the left right there. And here we go with the figures. Now, these are repaints, and I say lazy repaints because these both had vac metal on them on the original ones, but these don't, of course, have vac metal because they are colored for the cartoon coloration. And this is the pop-up lightsaber, which I'm not going to do the effect on it. But these are both Stan Solos. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not trying to pass these off as original right here, but funny story, a friend of mine bought this for 10 cents, and he traded it to another friend of mine for a Voltron. Yeah, he wanted a vehicle Voltron. And then my other friend actually can't stand these figures. And at the time I wasn't collecting them. So he sold it down the road for like $400 or $500. But crazy stories about vintage collecting back in the 10 years more ago era. But I think that the whole show is sort of based on these guys running around doing their stuff. But they run into other people and the different stories from other characters in there. If you watch the Droids show nowadays, I think you'll appreciate it more than back in the day. It does not feel like Star Wars at all, which is why it failed back in the day. But I can appreciate it now, and I did watch every episode. I actually watched them all a few times, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good little show, but it did not feel like Star Wars. Even C-3PO and R2-D2 in there, they kind of seem like alter dimension C-3PO, and R2-D2 always feels like R2-D2. But anyway, this is the weird color scheme that people are after that I actually avoided for so many years, and now they're really hard to get. All right, now we get into Uncle Gundy, which a lot of people call him Uncle Grundy, and it's because people like myself didn't watch the show much and pay much attention to it. But here is the card back for this guy, and yeah, original card back, original coin, original figure. Card back is definitely in rougher shape. I got these as cheap as I could as I was going along, but I want to point out that this, first off, I don't know how he's supposed to hold this gun. It doesn't make any sense. I guess that's a better way to put it on there. Just a black version of Reese's gun, and instead of gold, it is, it's strange. When you start looking at this and you say, like, they reused all these weapons and accessories, and then they just repainted them, and that's Kenner. It's called Kenner. That's what Kenner did back in the day. They did it with a lot of different toy lines, not just this one, but there is Uncle Grundy. He's just, he looks shorter and stouter than his actual picture, than his actual look in the cartoon. But it does sort of match it color-wise and stuff. There he is from the back. Short little dude, and it's oddly enough expensive. I would have thought he'd have been a cheaper, easier figure to get. No, he is a lot more expensive than I thought, but still a kind of fun little figure to have in your collection. Of course, if you want to finish the run of these, then you got to pick them up. But it's one of those weird things. Like, this is the first of the figures that is a different figure. Like, all the other ones are repaints or just a repack of the same exact figure. So this is, out of 12 figures, 4 of them are repacks. So this gets into the first one. But let's get into checking out the next one. But this was Uncle Gundy, not Grundy. Next up, we have John Tosh, and I was going to go in chronological order, but I obviously did not go in a chronological order. Anyway, this guy came later in the show. This one seems to be one of the more common ones. He looks pretty interesting. Let's take a look at this card back of his. Yes, I got Keldor as a box, just holding these up so they can lean back. And by the way, these have a different gold to them. These are like gold, and the Ewoks ones are maybe more of a copper color, so they are a different color than the Ewoks ones. I should have probably shown that, but here they are, this carded one. His gun is a black version of the IG-88. Well, IG-88 came with 2, but this was the IG-88 gun, and they repainted it. Of course, Kenner and their repaints. And this figure does look kind of, well, just boring, uneventful, and not Star Wars at all. But still, it's a pretty cool figure. I think this is one of the cheaper ones to get in the toy line. If you're looking to collect these, this is probably the first one you'll grab because it'll be the cheapest one you find. Probably the most common one of them. And he's got 2 different color wrist bands, arm sleeves, blue and orange. But really, not much to him. Not really that interesting. He does have, I guess, Is that like a mullet he's got going on? He's rocking a mullet. Anyway, pretty interesting little figure. Well, uninteresting little figure. John Tosh. Let's move on. All right, next up we have Kiya Mol. And I have to admit that she's a weird-looking chick with a strange hairdo. And they didn't do the green paint apps to her hair. they should have. You can see it on the card back there, the green paint apps on her hair that I would have thought they would have put on the figure. Instead, it just looks like there's something wrong with her hair, as it should just be the regular hair. Anyway, I always thought that was weird about this figure. Now, this is what I've had for a while, and she comes with the squid head blaster, and I think it's the same exact color as the squid head blaster, but it might be a slight bit darker. So I'm not 100%. I think it might be a slight bit darker than squid head's blaster, but in my mind, I've always thought it was the same color blaster. But here she is in her card back. Now, my card back is really rough. Really rough. A lot of my card backs are rough because try to get these as cheap as possible, not put too much money into them, although I've spent probably way too much on this toy line. But there she is. Interesting looking figure. This one here, oddly enough, is a little harder to get. Now, there's plenty of them on eBay, but everybody wants a ton of money for her, especially if you get her with her gun. If you get an original gun, it's really expensive. And then carded, like people want over $200 for her carded, of course. And then her coin is one that's another challenge to get. But still, you need her to finish the collection. And although Star Wars always had a good representation of female characters, when you look at the Droids line, not so much. I think this is the only female character in the Droids line, and she's pretty cool character, Kiya Mol. Next up, we've got Kez-Iban, and the thing about him is that he is really tall. It is a cool looking figure, and I want to say, for whatever reason, I feel like he was the easiest and cheapest to get back in the day. Back when I first started buying these up, probably 5 years ago, I don't know, I started buying them and I thought this one was the cheap one. Nowadays, this guy is shooting up in price and getting really hard to get. So that was a big surprise to me when I looked at just finishing these figures, how much more expensive this guy has gotten over the years. But he is pretty cool. There's an unreleased Series 2, which I have, and I'm going to be talking about those, and good thing we can buy those. But this is a character that evolves and becomes a bigger, greater thing in the story. If you haven't seen the show, you got to watch it. But they make him in his other iteration in Series 2. So I'll talk more about that when I do the Series 2 figures. But, you know, it's kind of cool, the card back. It does show Uncle Gundy in here, so that's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. He does come with a black blaster. It's not a blue black, it's a black blaster. So if you really, I shouldn't even say this, but if you really want to get straight black blasters, you can buy sealed ones of these and open them up and have a straight black blaster for whatever reason that you would want that for whichever figure you're missing it. He does come with this weird strap satchel kind of thing, and that's like an extra accessory if you think about it, but it's packed with it on there, so it's not like the accessory is something that you just get floating around in there. It's actually on the figure. So in my mind, I always thought these were not removable, but some people figure out how to get them off. Anyway, this is Kez-Iban, and tall, cool, interesting figure. I kind of like the purple. Next we get into Thall Joben, and he's a cool looking figure. Now this is from the first set of, four episodes of the show, and I don't know, I kind of feel like I like this a lot because it has the White Witch in it, the race, these characters, these figures. I like the way this dude looks. I think he's one of the cooler looking ones out of them. Although he doesn't feel like Star Wars, just I like the whole look. Kind of like a mohawk that's, it feels like and looks like he's got a mohawk, but it's just not put in place. You know, it doesn't have the hairspray in it. But very kind of a punk look from back in the 80s. Very 80s looking character, and pretty cool looking stuff going on right there. He does come with the black blaster also, I believe. That what he comes with. But anyway, it's a cool figure. I actually have a spare one to put in my White Witch I got from a friend of mine just recently. I'm pretty excited about that, so I'll be showing that too. But the White Witch was a big part of this, and there are some good reproductions out there, but why doesn't Kenner make it? It was actually planned and never released and he was the driver. Anyway, this is Thall Joben. Let's take a look at his friend. Next up, we've got Jord Dusat, and this is his buddy. They are a racing team, racing duo, and they work on the White Witch together and win the race, or you can watch it yourself and find out, but here's the card back. Now, this one was the cheapest. I got this sealed one for $50, and then years ago. Another one where I was like, between him and, was it Kez-Iban? Between those two, I thought those are the cheapest ones out there. And now this guy, well, at least sealed, is shot up in price, sealed. Lucy's still pretty easy to get. You can still get him relatively cheaply if you want to get the figure. Another one looks like he's got a mohawk going on right there. It's kind of interesting. But he's kind of a heavier set dude. These are some fun-loving kind of guys. They just like to have fun, crack jokes, all that kind of stuff. But this is it Forlom or Zuckuss? Is it Forlom's gun? Zuckuss gun. Forlom. Anyway, it's a repack of a gun that it's pretty easy to get, actually, if you just want to get the gun to go with them. Not that hard. And cool figure, Jord Dusat. Next up, we have Sise Fromm. Now, I have to tell you, we're getting into the realm of ridiculously expensive. And to say, I just don't have enough in me to go after a sealed one of these. I don't have enough in me to even buy the coin loose. Just, it's not worth it enough to me. Although, these are some gangsters from the first series. And I think that it is a cool figure. Cool that they made him. I kind of like that storyline the most, mostly because of the White Witch and the race and all that kind of stuff. And I really don't like races in Star Wars. But this is an interesting figure. He's got cloth goods. He's a big dude. Mine has trouble standing, so I got him on a stand. And not much more to say about him. He does have some head articulation, and he's got this collar back here. But it's a pretty interesting figure. Now, this custom card back I got from a buddy of mine, obviously it's not the original. The original would have a spot for the coin and have the coin on it. But I'm just glad that my buddy hooked me up with a custom card back to put this guy in. And a lot of fun. But this figure, I don't know. It feels like it didn't make it to the U.S. or something. I don't know the story on why it's so rare. And the next one is rare too, but for whatever reason, a friend of mine had a shop and got in a whole collection, and these were in it. And she was like, "I sold them all," and this thing was the one that went for over $1,000. So nowadays, this thing is really, really hard to track down, very expensive. And Sise Fromm, Sise as in big? No, Sise in his first name. All right, we're getting into Tig Fromm here, where I have been extremely naughty as a collector. This is 100% a custom figure. I will not spend the stupid money. Even 5 years ago when I was looking at these, I think they were pushing 150, 200 5 years ago. So nowadays, with they're pushing 500 or something stupid like that, it doesn't even match the show. Well, I mean, they're really notorious for not matching the show, but if you just look at the figure, like this figure matches the colors that Kinder made. For the most part, it's pretty good, really, really good custom. But looking at it, it's the red on the shoulders, just the way the color scheme and how it looks. It doesn't match the figure at all. If Stan Solo made one of these, I would hope it would match this figure. My card back is in rough shape, still a pretty cool looking figure. I think the character is kind of fun, cool. The character is the son of Sise Fromm. The big guy we just looked at was the gangster leader. This is the son of the gangster of the Fromm gang, and he's trying to prove himself. He kind of screws up, but it's one of those that he's like really evil, and if you mess with him, he's going to not only get even, but he's got something to prove because he's Tig Fromm. Tiggy! Next up, we've got the notorious Vlix. Vlix he's part of the Fromm gang. He is the heavy muscle of the Fromm gang, and he is kind of cool. They never really released him. There are some carded versions out there. Somehow he made it into production in very small numbers, like extremely. We saw that with Captain Power 2, like only like 100 exist or some stupid amount. There's probably 1,000 in existence, but so many got thrown away and trashed, and just people don't know about it. And that's just what happened, I guess. They probably done like a minimum quantity of 1,000 or something. I'm not sure about the story on that. This is a Mark Poon custom. Great dude. Does amazing work. I bought all his Ewoks and all his droids. And so I will be doing the unreleased stuff. Now, he did make 2 versions, the Kenner and then the... It's either Glasslight. I think it was Glasslight. But I'll have to freshen up on all that before I do that video. Still a cool figure. He's really a big guy. I can't get him to stand on his own to save my life. And I bet you the original one's got the same problem. But I have him on a stand, obviously, because he does not want to stand. He's a weird looking dude with tiny little feet, but he's a giant figure with tiny little feet. And that's so weird. But it's cool to have him. I've been looking at these, like getting a custom Vlix for a long time, but I've always passed simply because they always want like $100 and carded, and I think it includes the coin and all that kind of stuff. But this one I bought as a set, and I'll be showing off that set pretty soon. Pretty excited about that. But this is Vlix, another very elusive one. In fact, if you have an original one, it's like 17 to 25,000 for an original one these days. And I gotta say, I don't play like that. I'm not that big of a baller. Next, we're getting into vehicles, and I underestimated the size because he just feels like a small vehicle. The A-Wing. Now, this A-Wing is something that was quite elusive for a while there. This particular one, there's a story behind all of this. I'll tell that in a minute. But this is, it's a cool vehicle. It is. It really is a cool vehicle. Kind of sucks it came late in the line. Kind of sucks that getting multiples of these vintage ones are hard. The 90s one is still really cheap. Same mold. You could swap a lot of the parts on it. The gun here does not pop in and out. But on the 90s one, the gun pops in and out. They both have the exact same raise the canopy. We lost a figure over there. And does have some decals on the inside. I guess mine are peeling. I need to fix that peeling decal problem. And then the other thing, it has the same retractable landing gear. The 90s one has this on it. Mine hangs up a little bit. But this button, it makes that Kenner spinning a motor and making a noise because the motor is hitting a piece of plastic in there kind of noise. All right, so the story on this is I was at a toy show with a buddy of mine. I already had the 90s one, and I saw he had a 90s one and this one side by side, not this exact one. And I asked to look at this one, and he handed it to me. He said, "How about $12?" And I thought I was slick because I knew I had the vintage one. I was like, "How about 10?" And then it took him a second to realize, oh wait, you're holding the vintage one. Let me get that back. So 75. Still, even by today's standard, 75 is a great price. But I was like, oh no, not 75. How about 50? And I went home, just bought this one for 45 off eBay. I mean, they weren't that expensive 10, 12 years ago. Nowadays, I don't even know, a couple $100, 300, 500. Stupid expensive in my opinion. I only need the one. I got the one. I'm happy. And actually, the one I got for 45 didn't work. My friend Trey got it working for me. But A-Wing, cool ship. I actually really like it. Probably have like 5 or 6 of the 90s version because it's just that cool. Next up, we have the side gunner. And if you notice, I have the card back sitting here, kind of showing the vehicles and whatever came with this. This is a strange vehicle. I would call it a mini rig, but it's too big to be a mini rig. It's like small vehicle assortment. It's got some thrusters and stuff on the back there. It is kind of cool. A lot of times you see them without this top gun here. And I mean, I got a good deal. I got this for like right around $100, which complete was just a good deal because I was looking at other ones. And I was really pleased with all the decals still on it, all original, looking good overall. It's got this little side gun here. Now, its trick is you move this up and down. Now, I always thought something that was with this wing, it's static. It doesn't move. But this is what moves all the way around. Side gunner. And obviously, you can put a figure in here. You can also open this up and put a figure in here. Which I didn't. I didn't bother. I I don't really want to mess with possibly losing accessories over there, so I didn't do that. But still, there's decal on the inside. Pretty cool little vehicle. Not the greatest. Not something that I would go too far out of my way for. I kind of set a limit of 100 on this one and 100 on the one that I don't have, because obviously nobody wants to let that thing go for 100. But there's a bunch of other side stories to that. But anyway, this side gunner, it's kind of cool. It's not quite a mini rig, small vehicle assortment. Now, the last one is this ATL Interceptor, and it's right there. It's just got these two, I don't know, side pieces that come down, and I think they're connected. They come down together, but I don't know. I've never handled one. I see a bunch of them. I never really see a complete one, and they always want like $250, which is not really a horrible price, but I just don't think it's worth it. I set my limit at 100 and said, well, if I find one for 100, cool. If not, I don't want to spend the money. Also, this battery operated lightsaber, it's almost just like one of those glowing sticks that air traffic control that's out there on the tarmac there, kind of directing where the planes should go from back in the day. Not a lightsaber. This is like pre-extendable lightsaber time frame, but yeah, so that's what's left with this toy line that I don't have, and I partially just don't care, but if I saw one for a good price, I wouldn't turn it down. Lastly, we have the notorious White Witch. I got this from a buddy of mine. I was kind of waiting to get this so I could make this video. It's really cool that somebody 3D printed this, and it looks more like the show, I guess, than the original toy. And with that, it's just, the toy is it's much bigger. It has play features and options with it. I think it's gray instead of white. So the toy is cool, but this is still cool. I'm glad to have some sort of representation on the shelf, and it's still, getting customs are expensive. It's not cheap, but then I would say Pro Custom Figures made one. They charge $800 for theirs. So I mean, if you're wanting to get a Pro Custom Figures one, theirs is almost exactly spot on replica. I don't know when they're going to do the production run with them. I don't know if I'm going to pony up $800 for a White Witch either, because that's a lot of money. But Mark over there does amazing work. I just can't speak well enough about it. The only way to fit in, I had to use a Droid factory R2 to put in there. That's the only way I was able to fit an R2 in there, because the 3D one doesn't really fit the figures. And I wouldn't say this really fits the figures either, but I got a couple extra figures to put in there just because it's so cool to have a White Witch in 2024. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the entire Kenner vintage Droids line based on the cartoon of 1985. And truth is, it's a pretty cool little lineup of figures, and overall, it's not fun to collect at all in 2024. And it was a lot more fun to collect, I guess, decades ago. But if you collected a little bit of time, it could be sort of easy, and if you go for some reproduction stuff, it'd be kind of easy also too. But anyway, let me know what you think about this. Are you currently collecting this? Did you collect this in the past? Are you still like I was for a long time? Why would I collect that? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and Tadir Hanger out.
Don't think you're just going to rust away and leave me out here alone. Human-cyborg relations. A most useful and
Hey, an R2 unit. Easy.
A most
I'm just gonna take a look.
They got away, Tiggy.
Don't call me Tiggy.
Shall I call Sise and tell him the project is off?
Let me introduce you. R2, 3PO, meet the White Witch. Thall spent 3 years working this baby right down to the last bolt.
Oh, because of your bungling, the other gangs may find out about our secret base.
Gar, take care of their speeder. Mother won't be back for a while. You guys should get some rest.
His bite.
It's gonna be smooth sailing from here on with...
No work droid, Uncle Gundy. I bought one, but I traded it.
You traded the work droid?
What? Well, thank you.